Good afternoon, family. This is yours truly, Apostle Bennett, coming to you once again to share some ideas and principles that will assist us in overcoming some of the challenges that we're faced in our lives and over large spans of our lives so that we be able to move forward liberated or abrogated from all of those snares that have had a conscious or subconscious hold on us. As you know, we've been discussing critical choices and we've gone over about 5 parts. This will be our final part of that series. So we want to discuss critical choices, but we want to deal with them from a perspective of stressful structures. This is actually the add-on to the series number 5, and we want to kind of conclude it so we can get to the resolve, because at the end of the day, information is only as good as its resolve. So we want to reach a resolve. We want to reach our objectives and reestablish our goals or even create new goals. We told you on last week, when you're dealing with these areas that are stressful, these structures in your life, and we gave you the idea of structure as being a building, and we ask you to follow the principle that all truths are parallel so that you'll be able to make the connection between a physical structure and your structure, a physical building and your building, a physical construct and your construct, so that you'll be able to make some basic comparisons and come up with some simple answers to help you move forward in your life. And we propose that you utilize these things so that you can make these adjustments so that your behavior then becomes modified, so that to know better through modification, which means to do better. And we gave you some ideas. We addressed the idea of using as a technique or a tool cognitive therapy. And we told you that through this process, it will aid us in coming up with strategies to overcome these challenges. Now, sometimes when we have these stressful structures, what ends up happening is we need to figure out, how do we disposition that stress, and how do we alter our state of mind? Sometimes our mind gets twisted when we've taken in so many different ideas that people have of us, and who are parents' views of us, teachers' views of us, bosses and other figures of authority, those people that we hold near and dear, those people that we appreciate their level of intelligence. And sometimes when we take different positions and different postures, is that we become twisted because we try to embody the perspectives that they hold of us. And what we want to do is establish an internal perspective, and then we want to play it out externally. In other words, we want to come to some conclusions ourselves as it relates to our community of self, because no one knows you better than you. Now, I want to read a passage that I hold dear because it gives me some ideas to deal with. It gives me fundamental principles to neutralize some of these things that I have not had an explanation of, but I've dealt with fiercely in my life. And that is a scripture that is found in Hebrews 12, I think the first chapter. It tells us to strip off anything that slows us down and holds us back. It said, especially those missteps, we call them sins, but those missteps that trap themselves so tightly around our feet that it causes us to stumble and get tripped up. It says, and let us run with patience the particular race that God has set before us. Now, I want you to think about that. God has set a particular path in front of you. So your journey is already charted out. And remember that you are wonderfully and beautifully made. And God made you with purpose and for purpose. And there is not another person on the planet that has 100% makeup that you have. So that should cause you or give you reason to cheer, to salute yourself, and to thank God. Because if God designed you with that uniqueness, then it is obvious, isn't it? It is evident that He has a specific purpose in mind for you. And He knows that with that purpose, once you come to know what it is, you can make an indelible impression upon the hearts and the minds of humanity. You can contribute and be constructive. The only time that we become destructive is when we don't know our purpose. So we try to peel off something that we can utilize so that we can etch in some type of stone, some type of wall, on some type of plaque, our contribution to let people know that we were here. But you know, when you carry out your purpose, you don't have to worry about letting people know you were here. They will automatically know that you were here because you will reach the pinnacle of your success when you identify who and what you are. And this is what you have been spending your life trying to reach a resolve, trying to understand the complexity that is you. But I want you to get in your mind is that you are such a complex person of interest that it will take you the rest of your life to figure out just a small aspect of what your true potential is, what your capacity is, and how much of that potential you'll be able to put on display. So let's deal with some of these things, because what we want to do is we want to disposition our distress. And what we're referencing is we want to put in order or put some order to this distress, because it has a place, and that place is not inside your life. It's outside of your life. But you need to arrange all of the different particulars that bring about distress and those who are proponents of distress, so that you can match those persons with this challenge that you have. And if you feel the weight, the pressure of, then you want to put them in their proper place. And that is the person that may or may not be behind it or responsible, and that which distresses you. So we want to consolidate it. We want to gather it and compile it, and then we want to find a place that we can shelf it. And then when it's necessary, we can summons it in the form of knowledge that will help us make contributions into the life of others and give them viable examples, because the best example comes from your own personal experience. Other than that, it stays in the realm of an idea, a thought, a theory. But when you have personal experience and you're able to sort it and to consolidate it and disposition it so that now it becomes something that is constructive, something that you can utilize for your benefit and the benefit of others. Now you've turned your pain into a gain. And now that bump becomes a boost because now you can move to another level and elevate beyond it and be able to assist others who will find themselves in that same situation, the situation that the writer of Hebrews discussed when he told us that we need to take those things, those distress, those things that distress you, those things that weight on you, that dead weight that we talked about, that has been calculated. God knew it would be there, but he built and constructed you so mentally, physically, psychologically, you'll be able to bear the weight. But you have to believe it in order to receive it. Because if you can receive it, then that thing that has evaded you, you will be able to achieve it. So let's go back over and recant what the Hebrew writer actually said. Now I'm going to state it again. He said, let us strip off anything that slows us down or holds us back, especially those missteps, those sins that we call them, that wrap themselves so tightly around our feet that it causes us to trip or stumble. And let us run with patience the particular race that God has set before you. God set it before you. And if God set it before you, then he has charted a path within it so that you can be successful. Remember this. And I got this from, I believe, Morsorello. He says, God has a plan. Failure is not in that plan. Distress is not in that plan. But you're in that plan because God has not planned failure, distress, and all that Satan represents, your adversary represents. He has not planned that for you. But he has a plan for you. And he's going to teach you how to arrange those things that have troubled you, that have challenged you in the past so that you can have success, so that you can dispose of your stress. You're not a camel, my brother. You're not constructed to bear the weight of things, but you are intellectually inclined to disposition, to arrange, to put things in order. God has given you the ability to process thought, to strategize. It makes you like him. So you should rejoice when these things come to your life. You should expect a certain amount of challenge. And you should note, based upon your past experience, that you are well equipped physically, mentally, and spiritually to not only deal with this, but to dispose of it, to arrange it, to set it aside so that you can get the most out of it. See, it's not the things that you succeed in that teach you the most. It's the things that you don't achieve, the things that you have not garnered a great deal of success in. They teach you more than if you were just successful on the first try. All of the great inventors of our world, all of the great entrepreneurs, they didn't just wake up with an idea and then They just arbitrarily just was launched into success. If you speak with them, more times than not, they will tell you that they did not succeed with their initial plan, but it didn't stop them. They modified it, and they were disappointed. They were dealing with different levels of stress, but they learned how to disposition it so that it could become helpful to them. They didn't have that flawed idea. They didn't let, just because there was a blemish or imperfection that they discovered, keep them from accomplishing their objective, but they utilized it to their advantage. And that's what I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters. Utilize everything that you've got. Become resourceful. Utilize the good, the bad, the ugly. Remember, those are just values that we place on things. And they only have as great a weight as we put on them. Take it with a grain of salt. Do you know that people that deal with waste have found ways to convert that waste so that that which was not profitable, that no one else wanted to deal with, now they've discovered, and there are people that harness that waste and convert that waste into a form of energy? Have you ever heard of the adage, one man's trash is another man's treasure? So what I'm trying to convey to you, and I hope that it is sinking into your subconscious mind as you entertain it consciously, I'm hoping that it resonates with you and that it gives you hope and determination that you not only can make it, but you have determined that you're going to place your feet firmly in the sand and you're going to position yourself to win. And you're not going to count how many losses, because the losses are going to give you a body of information that's going to be valuable. And as you explore it, and as you gather more understanding, and as you grow older, as all of us do, you will have a different level of appreciation for it. So you want to look at, how do I change some of those things? More importantly, what are those things? By now, I'm certain that you've come to the conclusion of this idea, this term that I like to use is called character complexity, where you deal with all that is you. By now, I'm certain that you've discovered that you are a complex individual. But the beauty of that complexity, it brings out other elements, some elements that are lying dormant, helps you reach a place of discovery where you discover that latent power that's deep within your subconscious mind that gives you the ability to do something more, that extra, that X factor. So don't shy away from the complexity. Embrace it. Embrace your complexity. You know, when we begin to look at our complexity, we start to gather information, and sometimes we deal with it from a pessimistic position or state of mind. We look at everything from a negative perspective or a negative lens. We see life and we see more negative than we see positive. But take another look. Because in the compilation of information, you'll begin to see the multifaceted nature of you. You don't have to look at another person, but just you. And you'll begin to see that you have several different perspectives concerning you. Remember, about a month ago, I asked you, who are you? What do you think about you? Remember, I asked you, what happens when you face challenges? What happens when you get bad news? What happens when you forget who you are? Can you see it now? Everything we're discussing has to do with you. Because you are your best fan or your worst foe. But you can champion ideas. You can borrow thought. You can embrace and embody these ideas, these thoughts, and you can improve the quality of your life. This is why I'm coming to you the way that I am. Because much of who you are has been based upon other people's perspective. You believe more of what others have said about you than you actually believe what you said about you. In fact, when it comes to what you have to say, most times it's negative or your voice is silenced. But we have to learn to look at the person who has the greatest body of information as it pertains to us. That party or person is God and God alone. Second to him is you. I'm 60 years old. I've been knowing me for 60 years. And you know what I've discovered? The more I think I know, because of my complexity and my desire to understand it, to harness it so I can utilize it so that I can become better, because to become better means I then will be held responsible to do better, because there's a higher expectation of me, because finally I reached that plateau where I've embraced what God said about me, what the constructor of this construction had to say, what the designer of this design had to say, the creator of this creation has to say concerning me. So I began to do better. And brothers, I'm doing better. Sisters, I'm doing better. I'm becoming better. I learned a lot about myself when I was afflicted with the COVID virus. When I went to the hospital because I felt some pressure on my chest, and I was wondering if I was having an anxiety attack or a heart attack. So I went, they performed an EKG, and they came back, and the doctor told me, "You're dying." That was some incredible news to receive. It put me in a different place. And even though I value life, it gave me a different level, because now I was faced with something that seemed to me, based upon this other party's perspective, and that perspective was formed by the information that they had received through the EKG. I was told to rush off to the hospital and don't stop. I called my wife and we proceeded to the hospital. I had Googled some of my symptoms, and based upon what Google had to say, that body of information allowed me to be able to communicate with the doctors when I got to the hospital. And I want to give a shout out to Holy Cross Providence because they are an excellent hospital, one of the best, in my opinion. And I told them, I need you to perform a test. I need you to check and see if I have blood clots in my legs or blood clots in my lungs. The doctor was inquisitive and asked why. I said, I Googled it, and some of my symptoms, it says that it's either blood clots in the legs or blood clots in the lungs. Either of them make my way to the hospital. So I'm here. So would you perform it? They did, and they discovered no blood clots in my legs, but I did have blood clots in my lungs. So I was hospitalized. Then I was told or asked would I submit to a COVID test. I did, found out that I was positive, was put in the hospital for about a week approximately. And my wife was concerned. My children were concerned. We had already experienced a couple of people that we know personally that had died from the COVID, or how COVID exacerbated the underlying conditions, and they expired. So we knew two personally, and then we knew of another lady who also came down with it, and she also is now deceased. So we had some concerns. But I began to talk to God, and I told God is that I am not finished with you yet, and I know you are not finished with me. My thoughts were, God has a plan. Death right now is not in that plan, but I'm in that plan because God has not planned death for me right now. And I moved forward that way despite the distressful news. I moved forward because I had to disposition that stress, the impact of what the doctor said, and everything that surrounded it. I called my school, and the dean had the whole school, or the large portion of the student body in graduate school. They had them praying for me, and he called back and said, I've put it out because it's a seminary. And he said, I put it out that you were being challenged and we're praying for you. And I told him, thank you. I received so many calls, texts from well-wishers and brothers and sisters that I had not heard in many years, saying that they were standing in prayer with me. But I had to do what the Hebrew writer said. I had to strip off the thing that was slowing me down. The testimony of the doctor, I had to strip that off. What others had experienced in their life as a result of COVID, I had to strip that off. I had to strip off everything that was a weight that was going to hold me back, especially this kind of shortcoming, this kind of mark missing that was trying to wrap itself around my mind, my thought, my soul, my spirit, to trip me up. And I began to run with patience my particular race. That's what prompted me after I got out to start this discussion, so that I can share with others like yourself that this is not the end of it. Don't become disillusioned by all of these other ideas. Don't become a victim of twisted thinking where others impose on you what their will, what their ideas, what their perspectives are. Own your own perspective. You got enough information. You know you better than anyone. You've been with you all the days of your life. And guess what? You take you with you everywhere you go. So put on a show. Display the best that you are, the best that you've been designed to be. Do what you need to do. Articulate your thought. Take a stance. Don't let anyone define who you are, because they don't know you. They're still struggling with who they are. Now, I'm going to just leave you with this. God has a plan. Failure is not in that plan. You're in that plan. Success is in that plan. Victory is in that plan. The ability to conquer is in that plan. And so are you, because God has planned victory, success, and the fact that you're more than a conqueror. He's planned all of that for you. I still didn't get to everything that I wanted to, but I think you got the idea. So through your own self-disclosure, establish your own internal and external perspective. Don't let anyone impose on you what they believe you should be or what you are. Whether on public display or private display, you establish what your intents are and follow them for their good. Well, God bless you and keep you in the center of his will. And brothers and sisters, until that next time, to my family, we love you. We're praying for you. Be well. In Jesus' name. See you next week.